Hi everyone, sorry about all the technical difficulties. Welcome to JPR Day 2022. My name is Caitlin Rowell. I am a third year public relations student here at CSULB, and I will be your host for session one, the game within the game. And Miss Taylor over here to my right will be our chat moderator for the next hour. So in this session, we'll be talking about how us journalists and public relations professionals fit into the world of sports and entertainment. We have a really exciting lineup for you all today, but before we get started, I want to mention that if you guys have any questions for our panelists today, just throw them in the chat. Taylor will make a note of it and we'll ask your questions at the end during our Q&A session. All right, so let's get started. First in our lineup is Alec Palmer, social media manager for the LA Kings. Alec, if you want to mute yourself and tell us a little about yourself and your career, the floor is yours.
So thank you, Caitlin. Yeah, well, excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me. As she said, I'm Alec Palmer. I'm the social media manager for the LA Kings. I've been here since December. I've been an LA resident since New Year's Day. So still kind of getting the ropes out here. Moved out here from Cleveland, Ohio, originally from Pittsburgh. So made that cross country move, and it was pretty exciting. But I'm excited to join the Kings here. And I've had a interesting kind of route that I'm excited to get into later on. But originally came from baseball and the content creation side, and now I've moved over to hockey. And excited to see where the rest of my career takes me. Caitlin, I think you're muted.
Sorry, guys. All right, we're going to move on to down the line to Drew. If you want to tell us a little about yourself, if you want to mute.
Hey, what's going on? My name is Drew Ruiz. I'm a copywriter at Wieden & Kennedy, New York. That's an advertising agency out here. I used to work in media, so I used to work as an associate editor at Slam Magazine, so kind of worked in the basketball and sneaker space. I tell you the truth, got my hands in pretty much a lot of things. So, summertime, I do stuff with the Drew League. I'm doing stuff, right? Some digital stuff with Uninterrupted. So, just kind of trying to just leverage to see how many different accounts I can work on. On the Wieden side, I work on the McDonald's account. So again, the best way to sum up what I do is I come with ideas to the table, basically to have, McDonald's buy them, and things of that nature. So on the campaign side, it's very different from media because things move a little bit quicker. But the transition has been fun. I think I'm going on 16 months now. I'm currently living in New York. I'm from LA. I just made the move out, about a month and a half ago. So yeah, class of 2018, and I'm definitely excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Drew. I'm really excited to hear from you. All right, we'll move over to Isis. You want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yes. Hello, my name is Isis Roberts, and it's such an honor and a full circle moment for me to be here. A little bit about me. I'm currently the communications and social media specialist at the Herbalife Nutrition Foundation. I'm also a multimedia manager for Players Coalition, and I teach a social media class here. So it's cool to see all the students. A little bit of background about me. I graduated from Cal State Long Beach with a journalism degree in 2011. And I got in the industry really by interning a lot. I did a sports journalism institute program. I interned at a newspaper back in the day. So once I graduated, I actually got hired on at KTLA as a production assistant in the sports department. Stayed there for a little bit, and then I transitioned to the entertainment world, and I worked as a videographer and a video editor for a celebrity news website. So once I was there, that was cool. That was a great experience, but I missed the sports world. So I returned back to the beach and I got my master's in sports management. And that's when I really started to dive into the social media world. Because I had the background in video production, I was able to kind of have that mindset of what content should look like and how we should produce it and what strategies we should use to get that over to social media. So I went on while I was in school getting my master's. I got a job at Special Olympics Southern California as a public relations administrator and a social media administrator. And then I was able to leverage that position and get to where I'm at now, which is at Players Coalition and Herbalife Nutrition Foundation.
Wow. Well, you've done a lot. I'm so happy that you're here today, Isis.
Thank you.
With that, we have Q Sung, if you want to unmute. Very familiar face. Nice to see you.
Hello, nice to see you. Hi, my name is Q Sung Gong. I am a 2013 graduate of CSULB. I teach journalism 240 multimedia storytelling at the department, thankfully. I'm happy to be back in school and happy to be here as well. After I graduated in 2013, I worked as a staff photographer at the Orange County Register about 5 years. I left the Register in 2017, a little late 2017, and then I went off to do freelance photography, and I became frequent freelance photographer for Associated Press, my own employer, Orange County Register, and other papers. I currently still work for AP, LA Times, Orange County Register, and private clients I am not allowed to name, but fortunately I was able to cover a lot of big events like Olympics last year, 5 Oscars, and a Super Bowl this year. So I'm very happy where I'm at right now.
Wow. Great work. I'm so happy that you all are here. Last but not least, we have Matthew Moreno. Matthew, you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me. My name is Matthew Moreno. I graduated from Cal State Long Beach in 2014. My journalism career sort of began in my final year there. I was taking Gary Metzger's sports journalism class, and I saw him in the chat. An independent website reached out to see if there were any students interested in writing, excuse me, about different teams, and so it was an opportunity for me to cover the Lakers, the Dodgers, and really 2 teams that I grew up watching. I kind of turned that into then writing about USC football for Reign of Troy, which is part of the Fansided network. And that in turn led to an internship with Lakers Nation that started in 2014. It was to fulfill the internship requirement in order to graduate with a journalism degree from Cal State Long Beach. And that's where I've sort of been since then. I've worked my way up. And so now I'm the managing editor of DodgerBlue.com and LakersNation.com, which are sister sites.
Awesome stuff from all of our panelists. I'm so happy to have everyone here. So just quick reminder, if you guys have any, for our audience, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat for Taylor, but let's get into the juicy stuff, shall we? So our first question is, in your guys' experience, how have you seen the world of entertainment and sports collide in the industry? Isis, we'll start with you.
So I work for an organization called the Players Coalition, and it was founded in 2017, which was, if you remember around that time, it was around the time where Colin Kaepernick began to speak out against police brutality. So at the Players Coalition, athletes from across several leagues, they united together to form this organization so that we could have a platform to speak out against social injustices. So historically in the world of sports entertainment, we've seen athletes like Muhammad Ali, Tommy Smith, and even Jim Brown use their platforms to, and the media to fight social issues. But around 2016, we really got this feeling, and that's when I started to really see sports and entertainment collide. It was the shift again, where athletes in today's age started to use social media as their platform to really raise awareness. So, of course, in 2020, the world witnessed George Floyd being killed by police on camera. And that's when I personally, saw sports and entertainment collide. I mean, it was at live sporting events, we had athletes kneeling in solidarity. They were wearing Black Lives Matters t-shirts. Even the WNBA, they helped the state of Georgia become a blue state. So of course, with that came a lot of criticism, especially in the journalism world, where we had journalists telling athletes to shut up and dribble. But athletes seemed like more than ever, they were trying to prove that they were indeed more than an athlete. So as I entered this industry, it was exciting to witness and also play a role in helping athletes use their platforms in the entertainment world to raise awareness and to inspire change. So At the Players Coalition, what we do is athletes leverage their image and their follower amount, and they leverage that to get into the same rooms as lawmakers and policymakers and politicians. So where I come in, I get to kind of capture and report and publish that on social media. So again, that we could reach people who may have never known anything about the topic, if they didn't watch sports, if they didn't follow their favorite athletes. So again, it's just amazing to see the power that sports and entertainment and how they collide, because like I said, because of that, we're just being introduced to not only social issues, but players are using their image to get deals and endorsement deals on social media. So it's been exciting to see. It's been exciting to play a role into that. So that's really my background and how I've kind of witnessed in my professional career sports and entertainment collide.
Right. Yeah, I really like your point on how we're using these social platforms to amplify certain voices, and it's not just about sports or entertainment, that people can really use their platforms for other things rather than being put into that box.
Yeah.
Alec, I see that you're nodding your head a lot. Do you want to add anything?
No, it's just awesome to listen to what Isis had to say. But I can add to the question if you want me to go.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. Well, first off, if you see me waving, I'm in the conference room. It's motion censored, so I'm just trying to get the lights back on. But touching on what Isis said, it's a really awesome thing to see athletes kind of take hold of their platform. And I think it's interesting to watch, some athletes are choosing to, some athletes are not, which is really cool to see, because they do have such an amazing platform and opportunity to influence and affect a lot of people out there. But looking at the link between entertainment and sports, something that I have looked at. So previously, before the Kings, I was at a marketing and content creation agency, specifically in baseball. So we were working with, MLB and MILB athletes, and baseball was traditionally kind of like a more behind the times sport, and it came to content creation and marketing and all of that. So because of that, we had a lot of work to do to work with those athletes and showing hey, here's how you can make yourself relevant. And one of those kind of core pillars we talked about was, right nowadays, you're not just competing. Sports is not just competing with other sports, right? When we're at the Kings, we're not trying to get people to the game, against the Lakers or the Clippers, or, kind of pulling their attention that way. We're actually competing with things like Netflix, especially in LA. You have so many other things to do. You can go to the movies, you can go to tourist attractions, you can go hiking, you can go to the beach. So why are people interested in coming to a Kings game, or why are people interested in watching sports? To me, that's kind of the crux of what sports is, because at the end of the day, sports is entertainment. And when you're so ever connected to everything and have so many different options, it becomes that much more important. So especially, in a market like Los Angeles, where it is the entertainment capital of the world, we're sitting here thinking, okay, we're now not just trying to get people to come out. We're trying to get them to come for the experience, come for that show, because they're so used to seeing that and having that experience when you come to LA. And that's kind of what we're looking at. It's really exciting. It's also pretty difficult. LA is such an interesting, diverse, incredible market, as compared to maybe a more traditional hockey market where it's like, hey, we're playing good hockey, show up. So we have to take that kind of alternate angle. And it's, you see that sports and entertainment just in the question was collide. And it's a really, really kind of interesting place to be in. And I think it's only going to continue to trend that way in the future as the streaming services pick up, as sports gambling picks up, all these different things. It is becoming more and more about entertainment, which to me, I think is good. I think the sport will always remain true and pure to itself, but it's going to be interesting to see in the next few years just how the sports world evolves and changes, kind of in reaction to the entertainment aspect getting so much bigger.
Right. Thank you so much for Alec and Isis. Moving on to our next question. Our next question is for Drew. In 2020, you were one of the founders at NBA Bubble Life on Twitter. This seems like a great example of how we were just talking about sports and entertainment colliding. Can you talk to us about how NBA Bubble Life got started and what the reaction was to it?
Yeah, it was, it was peak pandemic, so we were shut down. There was no sports. People are still fighting for toilet paper and water. And we're not really doing anything, to tell you the truth. I had just got let go from Slam. So I think it was like unemployed for like 2 months. On a random Thursday, a couple of friends and I in a group chat, we're all hoop heads. So we were talking basketball and things, this, that, and the third. And we were kind of like, what if we made a page that documented everything going on in the bubble? And we were kind of just like, all right, let's do it. We'll separate it 4 ways. We launched a page on I think it was like on a Thursday night. It must have been like 10 p.m. on a Thursday. And it just kind of it caught wind. I mean, we weren't doing anything spectacular other than it was serving as a hub for all things bubble related. And it caught wind. I think, we got over like 9,000 followers in like a day and a half. And then that following Monday, like we hit 30,000. And then within the first 9 days, we hit 100,000 followers organically. You know what I'm saying? And then that's when everybody was reaching out, like, who's behind this account? So we finally did an interview with the New York Times, and then the New York Times kind of blasted our identities. And then after that, we kind of went on a little press tour. But I think the main thing behind NBA Bubble Life was we wanted to shed light on positivity. Again, it was a very dark period following up everything that happened with George Floyd. So we wanted to use our platform again for positivity, and towards the end of the campaign, we signed partnership deals with Tissot and Michelob. We donated $50,000 to the downtown LA Women's Shelter, as well as the Nurses Association out in Central Florida. We just felt, it was our right to do our part. But I mean, the response was great. I mean, to tell you the truth, it was kind of like, we were just kind of riding this wave. Like we were coming out on TV, like everything locally. So I think that was kind of the great part about it. And that's what got me a job at, Wieden and Kennedy right now. So everything just lined up pretty crazy.
Yeah, I really like how you're talking about. I think that's kind of like a full circle moment of what we were talking about earlier, how like using your platform, like you didn't know that NBA Bubble Life was gonna like blow up in that way, or you were gonna be able to do the things that you're doing. So I think that's really cool. To build off of that, actually, I think that's a great example of how social media has created so many subsets of sports groups and fan groups and meme accounts on the internet. I'm gonna move on to Alec. Actually, in your official capacity at the LA Kings, do you interact with these kind of groups that have kind of formed on the internet? If so, how? Or if not, do you think there is a value for teams in these niche subsets for sports fans and content?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely do. And that it is a huge value add for teams, especially. I think one thing it can be, you have to be careful for sure, because certain fan groups and different meme accounts just kind of acting from a official team account. There are a lot of players, not even just athletes, but just a lot of people, like relevant parties that what you do and how you behave on that account can affect. So, with that kind of caveat, you do interact with a lot of these accounts. We have such devoted fans, especially Kings fans. They are very proud to be Kings fans, especially in a market like LA, where there are so many dominant sports teams. So they're very intense, they're very passionate. So they really value us connecting and interacting with them. And if you have followed the Kings for a little while, which I'll plug it, you should follow the Kings. You can help me out. But they were kind of the first ones to take sports social and really capitalize on it back in 2011, 12. The Kings Twitter was kind of known as, I can say, I can't take credit for it, obviously, but it's like the OG kind of like, Wendy's, where they were snarky and edgy and sarcastic. And they were kind of the ones. We've had a bunch of different things go on and kind of tweets that have lived on in infamy, I guess you could say. But because of that, we have built such an intensely passionate, connected fan base. we're able to connect with them all the time. And now we're going through this kind of transition from a ton of fans who jumped on when we won the cups in 2012 and 2020 or in 2014. And those fans are now kind of getting older and usually on the millennial or older millennial side. And now we're getting a whole new generation of Gen Z fans. So now we're kind of straddling both of those, trying to figure out how best to interact with them. Whereas, maybe those original fans, they're not interacting or they're not part of those meme accounts necessarily, but they do have very big fan groups. We have our LA Royal Army, we have different fan groups who are very, very proud of those. But then we have our younger Generation Z fans who are just intense. They spam us with like just deep fried memes and fan cams and like all these things, and it's great. So we're able to interact with both sides of those. And I think it is important. However, I would caution saying that it needs to be part of your strategy. I think it's very easy right now in social specifically to kind of jump at the next shiniest thing. Whereas, hey, now all of a sudden now no one is using capital letters in their tweets. And it's like, do we do that? Or now all these teams are doing like really kind of deep, like intensely online memes and jokes. Do we do that? It has to fit your strategy, it has to fit your brand, it has to fit your voice. So however you find that, you have to be able to manage the expectations of those committed long-term fans while still marketing and getting and attracting those newer fans. So you can do that in a bunch of different ways. It's not necessarily a cop-out answer, but you have to be able to, it's kind of case by case. And there goes my lights. But yeah, I would say meme accounts, you interact with fan accounts, you got to be careful, but it has to fit into your strategy.
For sure. We'll see you in a second.
There we go.
Thank you for your response. Also, going back to earlier, if you guys want to plug in any of your projects, feel free. This is your time to shine. Speaking of the younger generation, I want to move on to Matthew. You're kind of a big deal and you are established in your industry. What would you say is something you see in new talent coming in, and like what is something as younger professionals, what do we need to do to have a better grasp or knowledge of, like, what do you want to see from the younger generation?
Yeah, so I mean, I can't fully speak for like other publishers out there, but I know like our content calendar is, I think, a little bit unique in the sense that we publish upwards of like 10 to 12 articles per day, across our websites. And with that, we hope to publish one per hour and then get that pushed out on social media. So it's a little bit different than what you might find like on with a student newspaper or magazine and stuff like that. And so what we have found, maybe the biggest growing learning curve, I guess, if you will, is some of the younger writers that either joined us as interns or just out of college, they're aware of what, the concept of a deadline, obviously coming from a journalism background, but maybe not necessarily how quickly we might need things. And so, kind of early on, we'll ask, hey, how long do you think it takes you to kind of complete a standard news article? And they might say, 30 minutes, which is about average, and that's fine. So then we plan accordingly for that. And then we get into a situation where maybe it's taken them a little bit longer because perhaps they're used to deadlines being a little bit softer. So I just think like in the digital space, especially with sports, things move very quickly. And so if there's kind of a better way to just kind of prepare and know like, hey, I need to be able to write a little bit faster without necessarily sacrificing some of the accuracy and quality of the writing. And that's something that we definitely help them with and grow. But I think that's what I've seen is kind of the biggest difference for young journalists.
So if I could paraphrase, get the writing down right now is what I'm hearing.
Definitely. I think maybe just becoming more comfortable in, like a really fast-paced environment. And again, it could be very specific to just what I'm in sports. And obviously there's games, every day or 2 games every 3 days type thing.
For sure. Thank you so much. All right, let's move on along, guys. All right, so on that note, Kyu-sung, you went to CSULB as a student, as you stated, and you're currently a lecturer here. We're talking about young professionals. What do you want us to take advantage while we're here, like student resources and all the rest?
Sorry. being a student, I personally came back to the school because I wanted to give back, what I got from school, and also because my learning curve was somewhat steep in a way. I honestly learned everything in a hard way, and then it took me a little curve to get me to the spot where I'm at. But I think you need to because most of the students, in the journalism department, their interest is, oh, how do you get this job? And I think as a student, this is where you find your niche and build your portfolio based on, and then when when you graduate, you're more confident with what you're going out, when you go out. So I I think it's this constant, and then there is a community of, the department, the Daily 49er, the PRSSA and the Dig magazine. There is the groups of community that you build out of here. And I think students should really take advantage of that community because I mean, the guys that I graduated with became, I have, I mean, Daniel, and if you remember Jason, Jason works at LA Times, and there are guys working in industry here and there, and you don't know where you're going with this. So you want to build that community. You want to work on your portfolio, find your niche. I have three things I want to mention a lot.
Right on. Thank you. Any other alumni in the chat want to jump in on this question?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think it's you have to leverage your resources because you know what I'm saying. Like, there's just a cool network. Being that it could be something that's posted on, like a student service website. It could be one of your teachers. I know specifically like Gary Metzger has a sports class. It might be somebody. Hey, we're looking for an internship. We're looking for a part-time writer. Like, you really have to use your resources and pull them in because it's kind of like not necessarily, what are you doing, but it's like, okay, what can you show? How can you use school to get to where you want to get? And I think that's the cool thing when like you're working, if I work at the Daily 49er and I'm trying to be a basketball writer, I'm covering, the Long Beach team. I'm trying to find, I might connect with Matthew and be like, hey, do you guys have any openings for Lakers Nation? I think, again, pulling your resources is very, very huge because it's like, you dig into that pool and then it's like, okay, I met this dude and I met her and I met him and they can help me XYZ. So again, I think it's just like having all your stuff. Yeah, you may not have, my portfolio isn't big, but whatever you have that you work on, have it so it's visible, right? If I talk to a student and he's like, oh, I want to be a sports writer. And I'm like, okay, like, where's your portfolio? Where are your clips? And he's like, oh, well, I don't. Then it's kind of like, well, how are you going to go to a job? And when they ask for that, like, it's not like, oh, well, I don't have it. It's like, okay, hey, here it is. I'm not where I want to be, but this is what I have. This is the type of experience that I'm in, and this is what I want to do. So I think kind of, promoting yourself and helping in that regard, it works out. It's going to work out best in your favor because you got to always realize there's always a pool of candidates, right? You're not just going up against, other kids in your class. Now you're going up against kids from SC, kids from Northwestern, kids from Syracuse, these big time programs. So it's kind of like, all right, what do you have and how can you be a great candidate for that dream job that you want?
And Caitlin, can I piggyback off of that?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I think too, a lot of students, and this has happened historically, a lot of students wait until after they graduate to get involved. But you have to get involved while you're in school. You have to try to get internships and do programs. And a lot of that might be you working for free. But getting that experience will allow you to kind of really network, but also kind of filter out what you like and what you don't like. When I was in school, it was, that's when people were saying newspapers are dead, newspapers are dead. Well, I got an internship at a newspaper. And I was able to kind of in 2010, kind of see, okay, how do we make this digital thing work? And this was in the very beginning. But, I didn't want to, growing up in the program, you have to take these, journalism writing classes. It wasn't my passion, but through that, I was able to figure out what I really wanted. So, don't be afraid to try things that you may not be interested in, because you might pick up some skills there that you could take to the next level. Also with that, Drew made a good point. You have to network, and networking is not just giving your business card and resume to everyone you see. It's actually really investing time to develop relationships with people who, you may not get anything from, but who knows, down the line, they may refer you to a job that you never even were thinking about. Every single job that I've gotten in my career, I was through word of mouth or someone referencing me, or I using a reference that I knew worked at the company. So never downplay how important. I would go out on a limb and say networking is more important than being in school, because these are the relationships that are really going to help the trajectory of your career. Just because they know you, and then your work ethic will speak for itself. So even if you don't have any experience, work hard, get there early, do above and beyond, because that's going to carry with you as you navigate through your career.
Caitlin, can I chime in as well? It's such great points. I think I'm the only non-CSU Long Beach alum in the panel. So I actually come from probably like quite the opposite. I came from a small Division III college in Cleveland called Baldwin Wallace. We had, with our commuter students, about 4,000 total. And with that, they're presented some similar challenges, but also some very different ones. So I'm an accounting major by trade, and I got my MBA in accounting, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. And exactly what Drew and Isis are talking about is, you have to kind of put yourself out there, make those connections. But as important as finding what you want to do is finding what you don't want to do. I took my very first internship was a tax internship because I was an accounting major. And I figured out right away, like day 2, I was like, I'm never doing this again. I hated this. And that was kind of what propelled me to look elsewhere. And then I started a sports internship that summer right after I finished that one. So that kind of led me there. But kind of going back to what Q said, differentiate yourself. I didn't have the traditional marketing or PR journalism background. So I taught myself all the creative kind of elements. I was up late in our studio trying to figure those out, teach myself those. And I wanted to differentiate myself from everybody else who was trying to compete for the same jobs I was. And at that time it was in, more traditional marketing. But I found myself really liking that creative side. And at that time, it was kind of the beginning of the sports creative explosion back in like 2018-ish. And with that, I was able to kind of showcase my skills. And that's how I got, kind of sought after by one of our, at the time when he was in Cleveland, one of the MLB guys. And I started working with him and then went on to work at their agency. So, differentiating yourself, finding, like, as important as finding what you want is finding out what you don't want. And I think above all else is like, yes, networking, I 100% agree, but, just being a good person goes so far in the sports world, because everybody worked with someone else who worked with someone else. And your reputation will start to carry on the further and further you get into your industry. And, I think if you're staying in the 11 o'clock, you'll talk to like my senior vice president, Mike. So, even that, I go somewhere else, he goes somewhere else. Now all of a sudden we're connected back and forth. So, and then the final thing, I don't mean to ramble, is stuff like this is please, reach out. I know I'll speak for myself, is reach out to us, follow us, connect with us on LinkedIn. And, I've spoken on, a decent amount of these. And I still talk with those students who have reached out. They have questions, resumes, cover letters, things like that. So, just take every advantage and build those genuine connections.
Thank you, guys. If I may just kind of respond to all of you. I think personally, we kind of get caught up in like the instant gratification of it all and just wanting to see our work pay off for us. But what I'm hearing from you guys is that you have to make the effort to network and you have to put yourself out there. I think since the pandemic, putting yourself out there is a little bit harder and harder to navigate through like post-pandemic world. But I think sessions like this is a great reminder that there is other ways to do so. So again, I just want to say thank you guys for joining and kind of putting that into perspective for us. All right. My next question is for Isis. So we heard about like what we can do now, but what's in store for us in the future? How do you see sports, entertainment, esports collaborating and moving forward into the future?
I think Alec said this in the beginning. You know, sports is entertainment. You know, this week alone, we've seen NFL player Antonio Brown. He dropped a music video. He's trying to be a rapper now. And we've seen rappers and entertainers want to be athletes. So I think with social media, we're going to witness much more of that because social media allows people, regular people like you and I, to have access to these athletes and to these entertainers. So I think, you know, these athletes are going to, and we're seeing it now, they're playing this role of influencers. So they could, like I said, they could do paid posts, paid advertisements. And so with that, as journalists, that just presents so many more career opportunities for us. I mean, we see esports, we see what's going on at Twitch and TikTok and sports betting. And then you add every social media platform that you can think of, that just presents so many more job opportunities that we may have not thought of before traditionally. So I think it's a good time for you all, especially as students, to get involved in this entertainment and sports world, because like I said, there's just so many different avenues that you could take. I think, you know, when you're growing up in the program, you just hear about those main jobs as what sports reporter, GM, you know, you hear these big titles, but there's so many more things that you could do that we just may not know about. And so the good thing about panels like this, you know, we're able to have conversations with you and kind of introduce you to jobs that you may have never thought of. For example, I work at Herbalife Nutrition Foundation, and I actually work with project managers, which I've never had done before. And they're kind of like the middleman who they serve as a liaison between myself and maybe like a video editor or a video or a graphic designer. So things like that, where you may have never thought, you know, could be your career, that's, you know, that's a perfect route that you could take, especially if you're organized and you have great communication skills. So I think just along with, as everything starts to evolve, and that's a good thing too. Nothing's the same. You know, who would have thought 5 years ago that TikTok would be the platform that everyone's going crazy over? So in this social media world, in this digital world, it's ever evolving. So take advantage, ride the wave, you know, try things that you may have never been interested in because you never know where it's going to take you. But I definitely think that we're seeing it's a great time for us, just because there's, like I said, there's so many different routes that we could go in this world.
Right. Before we move into our last question for this portion, does anyone else want to add anything to piggyback off of Isis? Not a problem. All right. So our last question is kind of a recap all over question. How can young professionals just starting out in journalism or public relations better prepare themselves for careers in the world of sports, esports, and entertainment? We can start with Drew.
Cool. I think one of the most important things is kind of like have an idea and narrow down what it is, you know, you want to exactly do. I feel a lot of times, you know, when kids reach out, I had somebody reach out a couple of weeks back. Somebody was like, I want to work in sports, and I think you could help me get my foot in the door. And it was kind of like, bro, like, okay, what? Like, I'll help out, but I'm not a stepping stool to get to where you want to get. You know what I'm saying? So I think one of the biggest things is like narrow down what it is exactly you want to do. And I think that the great thing about being a journalism major is like, I've been able to take this and apply it, you know, to advertising. And it's like, it's crazy because I never went to advertising school. I've never taken an advertising class, but yet, you know, I'm at one of the top ad agencies, you know, with a journalism career. And I think it's very important really just to narrow down, you know, get your foot in the door. I always tell people, you know, experience is your best teacher. There's nothing that, you know, a book can show you to prepare you for your career path, sometimes you're going to get thrown out to the fire. Sometimes it's sink or swim sometimes, and you'll start to see when your back's against the wall and you're kind of like, oh, like, I don't remember this in being in school. And it's just like, hey, on the fly, like, can you do it? And I think a lot of times it's like really preparing for that next chapter for you. Hey, maybe you want to get to your dream job. And maybe when you get there right out of college, maybe that dream job isn't what you expected, right? The grass isn't always greener on the other side. And I think I've learned that throughout my career. And one of the things is like, put in the work. I always tell, a lot of people when I get asked this question is like, it's all about reps. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, you got to put in 10,000 hour rule, or like, Kanye's 5 beats for 5 beats a day for 3 summers. You know what I'm saying? Like, you really, really got to hone your craft. So that a point where it's like, it's kind of second nature. To the point where, if I'm a journalism major, I can whip out a cool feature story, but I can write tweets as well. You know what I'm saying? I can write tweets for McDonald's. I can write tweets for Uninterrupted. I can write tweets for Talent. You know what I'm saying? And without missing a beat. And I think that's probably the number one important thing I try to tell people is like, really, really hone your craft. What is it that you want to do? And just apply. You're going to get told no more than yes throughout your career. And that's just what it is. You know what I'm saying? But you can't be afraid to get told no. So I feel, that's probably the best way I can answer that question.
I 100% agree. Matthew, do you want to jump in on this one? Give us some advice from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make it too redundant, but I know Alec and Drew both hit the nail on the head, and even Isis with the networking. The worst thing that can happen is somebody, says, no, I don't really have an opportunity for you right now, or you don't hear back. And, you just kind of take those lumps. We've all been there, and you keep going. You look for other opportunities. I think one good thing, being at Cal State Long Beach, you're in kind of the greater LA area, and the way things have kind of shifted over the past, decade now into more of a digital space is you don't necessarily need to leave the area to find, maybe a career path that you'd want to do, especially now, since the pandemic, a lot of models have shifted to more of a hybrid or work from home. And there is no substitute for hard work. I think that's something that we all in this panel, I'm sure a lot of students kind of pride themselves on. And one thing for me personally is, I think you can look to other people in the industry, whatever field you want to get to, and sort of draw inspiration from them, but don't get caught up in trying to do what they do. Trust your own work, like be yourself and just put your best foot forward. And ultimately that will open up the doors for you. And you can't get caught up in, I want to have the perfect job in a month from now, because life unfortunately doesn't work that way. But if you keep taking, different bites at the apple and improving on yourselves and growing your portfolio, like eventually you can get there.
I agree with all of the points you guys have made. Q, do you want to add anything before we move on in the session?
Yeah, of course. So based on just a little thing last, what Matthew said was, so being yourself is very important. I think whatever the journalism and media industry we're going into, it just requires more personality now. Everybody has technology. Everybody, has pretty much the similar information. Now it's about personality and show your personality, grow, show your more knowledge that you have, or show more interest that you, or passion that you have that, not many people have. And I think that's where you want to express yourself out to.
For sure. Oh. All right. So right now we're going to be move on into the Q&A portion soon, but right before we do that, Alec or Isis, any last comments on that last question?
Oh, sorry. You want to go, Alec?
Sure. Just quick. I think, looking at what Q and Matt said, being yourself, I think that, now more than ever, businesses aren't hiring resumes, they're hiring people. And, you can put whatever you want on your resume. You can have the most impressive resume in the world, but if you're not yourself, if you're not, a good person, someone to work with, and, who's committed, that can really harm you and kind of hinder your career. So I think at the end of the day, your resume can get you in the door, but then it's who you are that really helps you succeed and kind of keeps you on that pathway in your career.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was gonna say. I have a coworker that actually just started this month, and I knew we had a connection because I used to work with one of her friends, and so her friends referred her to me just to have a conversation. And she was telling me, she's like, "Yeah, I applied for this job in October, and I've been in the interview process ever since." And what she noted was that, yeah, they wanted to make sure I was a good fit with the company. So that means they wanted to make sure that she was good, you know, so that she fit the work culture. And, you know, like everyone was saying, like, it's not just about what's on your resume. It's like, do you get along with everyone? Are you a great team player? Are you just looking out for you? Or are you wanting to make sure that everyone succeeds? So I think, you know, being a good person, going above and beyond, really think about what kind of environment you want to work in. You know, do you want to work in a stressful environment where everyone's cussing each other out? Or do you want to work somewhere where you feel welcome and you welcome people as well? So that's really, you know, that's the number one question I think people are asking in interviews now is what's the work culture like? And so you want to figure out what role can you play with that? How can you make a difference in that setting, knowing what you know with what we've said?
Definitely, I've been working and I hate like bad work culture. It's definitely something that I have an eye out for. All right, so we're going to be opening up to the Q&A session from the questions from the audience. If the audience members haven't posted your questions in the chat already, post them now. We'll get to you shortly. Taylor is going to be taking over right now.
So hello, you guys. So the first question we have is from Joseph Fan. He's a PR major. This is to all of you. How have you struggled as a writer? If so, how did you improve?
I guess I should probably take that one first. I think a lot of it is just writing as much as you possibly can and submitting it to your professors and asking for feedback, or even journalists if you want to go in whatever industry maybe you want to cover. I know some are receptive to if you email them and kind of tell them, you know, hey, I'm a student here. This is what I want to get into. Like, would you mind just sort of reviewing it if they have the time? Maybe it won't necessarily be instant feedback, but they will be willing to provide it to you. But really, you know, practice, like I can't emphasize that enough. And like I said, I got my start at an independent sports journalism website where I could write, you know, as much or as little as I wanted. And so I made sure to really take advantage of that and write as much as possible about the teams that I chose to cover. And I would then, you know, get feedback from the editors there. And then, you know, you kind of learn, and also reading other people in the industry. Again, you don't want to necessarily copy them, but you can at least see, you know, kind of what their style and what their structure is and how they sort of format things.
Thank you, Matthew. Anyone want to add anything else?
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, it was like early on, I'm not gonna lie, I think my background, you know, heading into slam was different because I was at slam and I had yet to take a journalism class. You know, so I kind of felt like I was experiencing imposter syndrome for a little bit. And I think that was kind of tough because I'm like, you know, here I am, this kid, I don't know what the inverted pyramid style is, writing for, you know, a big publication, but I can't piss away this opportunity. Like, somebody vouched for me to get this opportunity, and I got to come through. So I think, you know, kind of just it boils down to just reps, you know, write, like, you know, take everything that you've learned and just, you know, apply it. You know, I can get a story out. I can be the fly on the wall and tell you what's happening, you know. And I think one of the biggest things, you just always want to polish your skills. You know, like Matt said, I think, yeah, I have, you know, some of my favorite sports writers out there that, you know, I'll still tend to read from time to time, not as much anymore, but, you know, just to see how they articulate something. I think it's great. You know, you could have, especially when, you know, let's say at a basketball game, you have 15, 20 different writers and you'll get 15, 20 different stories because it comes all from their unique perspective, you know. But again, it boils down to really honing your craft and, you know, putting in that work to be the writer that you want to be. You know, it's always funny when I look back and I see, you know, a first article that I published in like 2013 to see, you know, where I was at. I think the last thing I might've posted was like 2020. And that's a big 7-year gap. And I'm like, like, wow, like it's completely night and day. But then it goes back to just, I was trying to take anything and everything and just write. And that's how I got, from point A to point B over the last 7 years.
Taylor, I think you're muted.
Okay.
Oh, this one is for anyone. So Crystal asked, how can someone get an internship as a senior? It's been very hard for her to get one since they all want experience.
One of the things that I recommend is really trying to build up your resume, especially if you're lacking experience. One of the ways you could do that is by taking certification classes, learning on, I call YouTube University. But for example, Facebook has a free certification class. It only costs if you want to take the exam, but all the courses and classes are free. And what it is it teaches you Facebook marketing. If you want to enter the social media or digital marketing world, it gives you all the beginner classes. I'm looking right now. Let's see, I'm looking at the free online classes they have. But Facebook has Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger. So they have all these classes that kind of introduce you into that social media world if that's what you want to do. So doing things like that, getting a certification, going to YouTube to develop skills. I remember last year I applied for a job and one of the requirements was email marketing. Now I have now I have experience, but at the time I had no experience in email marketing. So I went on YouTube and started at that. What does an email marketer do? And I'm watching all these videos and I'm learning and I'm like, okay, I could add that as a skill if I practice and fine tune it. So if you're having trouble because you don't have experience, then find other ways to pad your resume. So by doing that, by doing certifications, I think you guys have access to LinkedIn Learning. Take those classes. Linda has free classes. So do things on that end to kind of offset what you don't have in experience. And also at the same time, that will help you kind of get professional experience that kind of works as like a trade. You're getting experience as a trade. So I think that's a good start to kind of help fill in that void. And then the rest is kind of networking. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. So maybe you can't get in the door, but maybe you know someone else that could refer you to someone else that knows someone else. So I think, having those conversations is that's kind of a cheat code to kind of help you at least get in the door and get into the right faces. So that way they could be the ones that could give you your first, years of experience. So I think, those three things could kind of help you make the process a little bit more easier, because I know how difficult it is. We were all students. We all know, everyone's like, we want experience. And we're like, I've seen jobs that are like, we want 15 years experience in social media. And I'm like, social media has not even been around that long. You know what I mean? So we know how frustrating it is. So you kind of have to figure out these back doors and kind of cheat codes on how to get in the door otherwise. I'm going to put the Facebook program in the chat just because I think it's such a great start, especially if you're interested in digital marketing or social media marketing. It's so many free tools and resources out there. And I think if you start with that, that could kind of help you kind of navigate your career a little bit more easier. Oh, you're on mute again, Taylor.
Thank you so much for listing all those resources. I'm sure everyone's going to appreciate it. So the next question is from Aaliyah. How do you know which area is right for you? How did you guys know which niche in sports and entertainment suited you best?
I can start. I don't think, I'll speak for myself. Like, I had no idea until I started doing things. Like I said, I graduated with a BA in accounting, like obviously it's not sports or marketing or anything at all. And my first sports internship, I did everything. It was minor league soccer, and I did everything from clean toilets to perform as the mascot on game day to help be in the meeting room while they're brokering their new Adidas jersey deal. So I was able to do all of those different things. And my second job in sports, it was working at my college and starting the sports creative for all of our our baseball, men's basketball, different things like that. And then was at an agency. And I still feel like I'm still figuring that out now at the Kings. And you find, I think it might have been Matthew or Q from or a couple questions ago, just saying you got to learn from each experience you have and take that nugget of information and whatever that is. I think one of the kind of misconceptions is that your first job is going to be your dream job. And while that may certainly be true for some people, it's most likely not going to be true. And it's not necessarily pessimistic, but there's just a lot that goes on that you just don't know, that, the shine can wear off certain things, and you might like it at first, then you get really into the nitty gritty and you don't, or it goes the opposite way. So I would just say, don't put so much pressure on yourself. I know it's easier said than done, because I did the same thing coming out of college. It was like, I got to find my perfect job right away, or I'm going to be unhappy. And it's like, I loved my first job. But after 2.5 years there, I started to realize that's not exactly what I wanted to do. And I don't regret it. I don't think that is a waste or anything, but you have to learn from that and move on. And I think there's actually another question I saw it earlier, was talking about, how do you get to a big brand or a big agency or something like that? Again, I'll speak for myself, is that there are a lot of valuable experiences. You don't just have to work for a large agency or a large sports team or anything like that. You can do incredible work at all levels of sports creative marketing, from startup to Fortune 100 company. So I would say, again, take those experiences, take those learnings, and just continue to develop, always be learning, and always, want to put your best foot forward and continue that throughout your career.
Thank you, Alec. So I think we have time for one last question. Drew asked, how was it like moving? Oh, this one is for Drew. How was it like moving to the East Coast as far as networking goes? Did you have to meet new people, or with being in the digital age, was it one of the network based on the web?
That's a great question. I think, for me, being born and raised in LA, I was 30 years in LA. I kind of just networked throughout, the basketball and sneaker community space. And I met so many people who were from New York. When I was freelancing for Slam, they're a New York-based company. So I would have conversations with people from New York. People at brands were in New York, whether that was, the Nikes, Adidas, whatever the case may be. So it was like, I knew so many people within the media space. So I think when the opportunity presented itself, when I got the job at Wieden & Kennedy, they were like, hey, what are your thoughts on relocating? And I was like, well, if the opportunity is right, I'm willing to do it, because again, I'm born and raised in LA, and I would like something new. And who wouldn't want to go to New York for an opportunity? So I think that the networking for me, it was like, I had already known people. So it's kind of like a plug and play. I'm just kind of getting used to living out here and, dealing with life without a car, but it's not like I don't know anybody. I still know a lot of people within, currently in advertising, and then, other people within the media space. So I feel it's just like, I'm opening my network basically on the East Coast. I feel that's probably the best way I can answer that.
Okay, now I'm gonna give it back to my.
All right, we do have to wrap up. Unfortunately, I feel like we could talk amongst ourselves all day, but I just want to highlight some key points that you guys made throughout the session. One, sports is entertainment. I think we've made that really clear in going into the future and coming into the industry. Obviously, something that was talked a lot was finding your niche and building your portfolio, taking advantage of resources while we're in school, because we are in like the best target demographic to put ourselves out there. With that, also networking. Obviously, I think that's the biggest thing to do. This is a great networking opportunity. Like we mentioned earlier, all of our panelists' socials and how to get in contact with them is in the chat somewhere. We can compile those for you guys later. Also work hard and just be genuinely a good person and be yourself, and you'll find the right spot for you in your career. And I think that's really important. Also, while we're in school, obviously, to take advantage of our professors and sessions like this where we can get criticism and advice, and I think that's something we take for granted. And moving forward, I definitely personally will be putting myself out there a little bit more. Before we go, I have a couple people we want to thank. We obviously want to thank our panelists. Thank you guys so much for giving us the time and giving us insight and really good advice today. We want to thank the JPR team for making today happen. Shout out to Juan, Kaylee, Giselle, Juliana, America, Cameron, and to my co-host Taylor. Our advisors, Jennifer Newton, Robin Jones, and Jennifer Fleming. And shout out to Dan Olson, who's currently on vacation right now, but is still helping us with tech. So yeah, that's it for session 1. Session 2 will be beginning shortly in the same Zoom link. So if you guys want to join us shortly, that'd be great. Thank you to our panelists. See you around.